the thing that no one tells you is you can and should always ask questions. And what I mean by that is, like, when I think back to my very first imposter syndrome that I can remember in my career, being at the Super Bowl, there was an event one evening that we had to go in because we knew that a couple executives that were there were going to be at this event, and that's where we were going to pull them aside. And I vividly have this memory of going into this event where it was all these general managers from different teams, and I just was sort of like, I am a fish out of water. I want to belong here. I don't know that I do. Like, I'm wearing a suit probably, but I'm not, I don't know. So I learned fast that it's like, okay, you can try to exude confidence, by just, shoulders back, walking into a room. But I really think what I've learned along the way that's helped me most is finding and not being scared to ask questions. Hey, everybody. I'm Lindsay. This is Things No One Tells You, our podcast that we also call TNOTY. And this week, it's going to be a little bit different because we're taking you behind the scenes. And I'm so excited. You guys have been so great about sending in some really interesting questions about things no one tells you, what's the story behind it, etc. So we thought, you know what? Maybe we just do an episode dedicated to a little Q&A. Put a pin in that for a second, because one thing I did want to share is I am so excited about the episodes that we have coming up soon within the next month or two. I love the conversations we've had so far, and I really love when we can build this community and really connect about what are the things no one tells you that you think we should be talking more about. So a reminder to subscribe so you get to listen to all of those. But I also wanted to note that this weekend was really special. And what I wanted to share was that we went down to Washington, D.C. Most of you probably know I'm from Virginia, so that basically I consider home. I lived there for several years, covered sports there. And we went back to the Blue Hope Bash. And it was myself, my husband, my two kids, and our parents, Melvin and my families, both came, as did my sister-in-laws and my husband's brother. And it was so special because the Blue Hope Bash is in honor of colorectal cancer. We have a connection to the Colorectal Cancer Alliance and have been doing work with them for a really long time. So they decided to honor Melvin and myself, which was so kind and amazing to be in that room. But we had our kids there with us. And it's the first time that we've ever received an award together, which was awesome, but that our kids were able to kind of see something like that and understand, I think, the power of the ability to give back and working to give back and what that can look like. And I just thought, man, like there's something no one told me was what that is like and how important it is to do that when we have the opportunity. And what I didn't realize was just by them being in that room, because to be honest, we had to make tough decisions about, do we do that? Do we do a basketball tournament? And it's a big deal at this age. But it really made an impact on them. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm hopeful that maybe one day when they look back, that will be one of the memories that they have that helps them realize, like, hey, I can do that too. So there's that. Okay. Anyway, so today, because you guys have been so awesome and engaging and asking interesting questions, we were like, let's just do a Q&A. So I am also excited because I get to introduce you really to a very special member of my team today. And I thought, you know what, we need to talk a little bit more about that because I want you guys to know who is behind this podcast with me. So today you guys are going to meet Ashley Dickson-Ellison. She is amazing. She has her own podcast. It's called Unabridged, a book podcast, which actually is celebrating its 300th episode in November. So the girl knows something about podcasting in a real way. She runs her own podcast production and strategy business, which is so awesome. Unabridged Digital Media Solutions. So if you're looking to start your own, I highly recommend. After the episode, I'm going to introduce you to a couple other members of our team who are amazing, Sarah and Sam. But in the meantime, thank you so much for sending in your questions. This is a Q&A that's really a mix of like career, life stuff, wife stuff, motherhood. And Ashley, by the way, is a terrific interviewer. No shock, she has her own podcast. But I hope you enjoy this Q&A. Thanks for your questions. Enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to Things No One Tells You.
That sounds nice. You're good at that.
Today, we have a very special guest. I'm Ashley. I'm the show's producer. And today, we have a special guest who is already kind of heckling me here. We are so excited to talk with our beloved host of Things No One Tells You, or TNOTY, as we like to call it, Lindsay Czarniak.
That intro was awesome. And also, I mean, the fact that you are the glue that really holds this together is why I'm laughing because thank you. No, truly, Ashley is the glue. And she's also a great friend and she's a great producer. So yeah. And accomplished podcaster in your own right. I love learning from you. So
oh, thank you.
Woohoo!
Awesome. We've been going at it for quite a while. This is episode 22. And so we just wanted to take a chance to talk about some things. We've gotten lots of great questions and comments as we've gone along here. And so we wanted to take a time to do a Q&A with Lindsay. So we have some questions from the audience and just wanted to open up this way of doing things, and this won't be our only one. So if you are listening today and you're like, oh, we have questions, go ahead and send them to us because we would love to hold on to them for our next Q&A.
I wonder if Taylor Swift would consider letting us use her song 22 in this episode. Probably not. I'm thinking a hard no. But maybe Sarah on our team could see if she can make that happen.
I love that
idea. But can I just say real quick before you start, one thing that I think is really amazing about our team is that folks wouldn't know if they're listening or watching, but we have this awesome team of women that produce and put on this podcast. And it wasn't that we were necessarily intentional with that, although I always love an opportunity to work with, women who are creative, et cetera. But I think that's been really cool, and it's been really awesome to get to know everyone because we are from all different areas of the country too. So I joke that I feel like I've known Ashley forever and that maybe we should really be living on the same street. But she's in South Carolina.
We are fortunate that we have a lot of parallel life experiences. We are both moms. Our kids are very similarly aged. And so we've been getting to do a lot of those milestones together, which means a lot. It is very helpful.
Should we tell them about how my son's name is Dell and yours is Della?
Yes. And
how
they're
random.
Both in 6th grade this year.
So
we have
there's that.
Crossed the middle school, John. So shout out to Bridget Kermoris, who just did the last episode. But I was behind the scenes on that one, but taking avid notes while she was sharing different things to do with our middle schoolers.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Lots to learn there. So one of the questions is, what is the story behind Things No One Tells You? How did that come to be?
Oh, that's a good question right out of the gate. So I, somewhere along the line, started realizing, there are all these things, and covering sports, I think, is probably where I first started realizing it, but certainly just through life experiences, like talking to athletes and getting to know their stories sometimes, whether it was like in prep that I was doing for sideline reporting or Sports Center days or really whatever it is, when you have an opportunity to get to deep dive into someone and their story, inevitably, I've sort of just taken stock at the fact that there is something that someone has gone through that usually we, regular society, can be like, oh, wow, yes, totally, I get that. And I started to realize, like, probably within the past year, that it's like, when you have a conversation with someone and they're like, oh yeah, it was great. I took this job, but listen, the thing no one tells you is that ... Or, oh, we went here for a trip. The thing no one tells you though is ... Like, you can apply that phrase to so many different things. And I think, what are we really saying when we're saying the thing no one tells you is the real story that no one's necessarily going to talk about is, and the real story means something to me because I really think that there are so many things in life, and you can make it deep or you can make it more surface. But whether it is conversations about race, conversations about marriage, about raising kids, about the grind to be the best at what you're doing professionally, about how you're navigating the world as your own self, it's like, no matter what, there are these things that feel hard to talk about because maybe we're embarrassed to bring them to the surface because for whatever reason. And so I really think trying to have those conversations is so powerful and can just open doors if we do it in a thoughtful manner. Like, what are we scared? When I had a conversation with my mother-in-law about race, this was a few years ago, I just wanted to ask her questions that I had thought of. And I was really nervous to ask her some of those questions because I didn't want to ask a question in a way that seemed in any shape or form uneducated, disrespectful, what have you. And she was such a wonderful, safe space and person to talk to about it because she was so honest. And I just found from that conversation and then subsequently others on other topics that usually those are the kinds of talks where people are like, oh yeah, let me, so really long way of saying, I think that when we connect about the things no one tells you, it reveals, interesting conversation and stories from everyone that has a power of connection, but also we can oftentimes really learn from it and then apply it to our own lives. And sometimes it's really fun stuff and just completely random.
Yes. I think it's been so interesting to see the guests come and share, because what we have found on the back end of things is that there are a lot of through lines that we did not anticipate of what people share from different industries, connecting to just life experience and being human, and how those things kind of transcend some of these different industries.
No, you're right. I was going to say, I think a couple things that have really stuck out for me from conversations that we've had across the board is imposter syndrome. I knew what it meant, but I feel like, oh my gosh, the level of how our guests have opened up about that. I'm like, this is a real thing that a lot of people are dealing with. And, how do we apply that? How do you break through that once you know that? Imposter
That's exactly
syndrome.
what I was going to ask you. That I'm on the exact same wavelength as for you, Lindsay. I think that has come up with a lot of people. What is a time you've encountered that, or a way that you have felt it in your industry, in your life? And maybe what is something that no one has told you that you feel like you could share in that arena? Because I think you're right. That is something that's come up surprisingly often in in the conversations you've had with people so far.
I think one of the things that I think about is the thing no one tells you, that I've learned a little bit from my experience with imposter syndrome and coming up through my career is the thing that no one tells you is you can and should always ask questions. And what I mean by that is when I think back to my very first imposter syndrome that I can remember in my career. And it's funny because now that I've interviewed a ton of people about this, some people say they don't experience it or didn't experience it at a debilitating level until they really made it to the place where they wanted to be. They had the big kahuna job and all of a sudden they were like, uh-oh, now I'm here. What do I do? Some people have said that it shows up more in the beginning when you're navigating through. So for me, mine was probably more the beginning because I remember one of my first jobs that was really dedicated to covering just sports. I was covering the Miami Dolphins in Miami, Florida, and we were at the Super Bowl one year. Our team was that I worked with was basically embedded with the Dolphins because our station was partners with the Dolphins. So that was an awesome setup to have. And actually people that are looking for career advice, I always say, if you have an opportunity and if you're going to look at local stations, if there are sports partnerships, it's amazing. So being at the Super Bowl, there was an event one evening that we had to go in because we knew that a couple executives that were there were going to be at this event, and that's where we were going to pull them aside. And I vividly have this memory of going into this event where it was all these general managers from different teams. And I just was sort of like, I am a fish out of water. And it was just because I still felt so new in that space. I've told people before that I started in news. And so going to sports, I had people in Miami that were like, we know that your background's news, come here and we're going to teach you everything you need to know. We're going to give you the lay of the land, because one of my biggest fears, and I think this is a fear that a lot of people have in any aspect in which they work, is what if someone feels like I'm not legit or I'm a fraud? Or one of my big fears is just not being prepared. If you're in a scenario where you don't know something, or one of my other things is, oh my gosh, it crushes me if I feel like there's a missed opportunity. And sometimes when you feel and that you are in the middle of a big opportunity, but you're not prepared to meet that opportunity, right? That's always something that I'm like, okay, preparation is so key, just because, if you do the best you can to be ready for a given situation, then really all you can control is just being in that situation and letting it ride and letting God do the work, whatever you believe, But anyway, so I remember being in that scenario, and I was walking into this room with Brian, my videographer, who's amazing, and just feeling like I want to belong here. I don't know that I do. Like I'm wearing a suit probably, but I'm not, I don't know. So I learned fast that it's like, okay, you can try to exude confidence, by just shoulders back, walking into a room. But I really think what I've learned along the way that's helped me most is finding and not being scared to ask questions. Like, hey, there's an art to it. Like if it's something that, when I transitioned to sports, it was like, I feel like I should know a lot of these things that I'm asking if I'm at the level where I am right now in sports. So not being intimidated that you're going to come off as not knowing your stuff, but being like, hey, I'm so excited to be here and be covering this. Can you explain to me XYZ? Or, there's a way to ask those questions. I don't know if that makes sense, but so physically, I've experienced imposter syndrome where I can point to that scenario of walking into a very specific room. I think otherwise it's just like, certain times when you're given a big opportunity and I'm like sitting on a desk somewhere and you're anchoring or talking to someone who's whatever type of Hall of Famer and you're like, okay, this is so amazing. And you're trying not to, pinch yourself, but then you're like, do I really belong? Does that make sense?
Yes, I love that. And I think it really connects to first, two things are coming up for me.
Yeah.
One is what you just said about the things no one tells you, and how I think that what I love what you're doing in the interviews is just that lowers those barriers and makes it where people feel more connected. And I love that. And I think that's why the show for me is like so exciting to be part of, because I think being able to make those human connections shows that no matter, I mean, even if people are really high in their industry, they've accomplished these really amazing accomplishments, like that doesn't mean they don't have these struggles that unite us. And I think that's really comforting for people, and inspiring. So I love that. But it also, the other thing I was remembering is when you and I first met in person, Lindsay.
Yeah.
The first day we got together, we were at a conference and we had not signed up for this awards show because we weren't sure if we didn't know if we were going to be in town. We were still trying to get all the timing down. And so we just didn't know. And you said, I really want to go check this thing out. And I was sort of like, oh, well, we don't have we're not wearing the right clothes. We didn't sign up and it said you had to sign up. We didn't follow the procedures. And you were like, let's just go see. And I loved that we went up to the table and you were so kind, but you were also like, I'm so sorry. We did not follow the proper procedures, but I'm just wondering, is there any way that we could get in and hear some of this?
Yes.
And the people were like, absolutely. Like, here's the QR code that you can scan and then you can slide right in. And we went in and we heard so many amazing speeches. We got to see a lot of really accomplished podcasters, and it was just really inspiring. And so absolutely, like that is just you in that moment living what you were just sharing of.
That's
just
so funny.
Ask the question, say the thing, give it a go. And I think by doing that, we got to do something really cool that we otherwise would have missed.
Yeah.
And the worst that could have happened was they would have said, no, I'm sorry, you didn't register. And so it was that moment of like, what were the stakes there? It wasn't a big deal to ask.
You're right. And there was a lot that came out of that, watching that award show, because I remember vividly the man who stood up and he was like talking about his wife and his family. And I don't know. So yeah, there were things that I still think on. But what's funny about that is in that moment when we went in there, it's sort of like you said the word, it's kindness. It's like, because it does matter how you approach that uncertainty, and especially like you're saying, like if it's something where you were really supposed to do something one way.
Right.
I don't promote that, like missing a deadline, waiting until forever. But it's like, if all you can do is really, be your authentic self and just, hey, here's what I would like to do. And also that sort of goes back to some of the practices that it takes in journalism in general. It's like, you're trying to get to the story. You're trying to, hey, could we, it is interesting, that part of it. But yeah. And I remember being so grateful that I had a partner in crime, because you were such a great balance. And that's when I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Like, we're good. We got this, because, it was, we were kind of like Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. And I do think, like you said, I mean, it's not that I don't promote not following the guidelines. However, I think guidelines are often not there to actually prevent people from being in the room. And sometimes when we get caught up with imposter syndrome, or we get caught up with doing things the right way, or we get caught up with what we think the rules are, we really miss out. And I think, coming in, of course, the people who are winning the awards want people in the room. I mean, that even just the actual physical part of being present for someone is powerful.
Well,
but then also that mental
yeah.
part of just like, you can't be in the room if you don't ask the questions. You're never going to have those opportunities.
It's very interesting too that you say that, because I have really realized over the past couple months that I feel like the actual art of reporting, and like storytelling in that way really is something that I've loved for a long time. Like I love that part of the craft. But what you're saying there about like sort of not being scared to ask the thing. Also, in the profession of journalism, it's like sometimes I'll find myself in those situations where you're like, oh my God, this is a golden opportunity. So-and-so just walked out. How did that happen? But you're like, in the back of my mind, there are times that I have to push that voice down. That's like, okay, but hold on, you're really not supposed to have been in this position to run into this person. And even if you've done it completely the right way, it's like, but no, just get out of your own head and go do it. You know, like I still call my dad about stuff like that all the time. Like I'll be like, hey, because my dad is in the same industry. He was a journalist who covered sports. And it's like, is this okay if I show up here? And what if I, you know? So I know that's a little bit in the weeds, but it's interesting to me that, yeah, you kind of always have that inner voice. And sometimes what I've seen too, especially when I worked at ESPN, is like, one difference in people that really are just badass at being like the hardcore breaking news sports reporters is like that question doesn't even cross that mind. They're like in the locker room. They're just like, hey, tell me about da 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 da. There are times that I am like, oh, I really wish I could just be like, da da da, tell me this. But I maybe feel like I'm a little bit too much of an empath sometimes, you know? And that kind of comes
that's
into
a
play.
balance, right? It is a balance.
It is
It's
what
like
it is. That's where I am with it.
and being human first. And so there is like the chasing the story, but also caring about the person. And so, yeah, I think that is a fine line to walk. And in fact, that brings me to another question here, which is,
You're so good at this.
what do you love about being a journalist and interviewing people? That was another question.
That's a good question. Whoever sent that in. I really love the live aspect of things. I've also realized that. And when I keep saying that, it's like, I do think for so long you're in it and you're, you know, I came up through local news and then sports. So it's like, you're always sort of this mindset that like, if you're driven, that it's like, okay, I'm going to keep going. What market can I get to next? And so you kind of get used to that rhythm and roll with it. I really love being live, talking about something that's about to happen that's like uncertain because the stakes can't be higher. So like if there's a game, you know, my 6 p.m. Sports Center was perfect timing for me because oftentimes it would lead into a game and it's like, what's going to happen? Here are the stakes. We're showing you the behind the scenes shots. Other than that type of like broadcasting piece of it, I really love the reporting. Like I love talking to the folks involved in whatever the scenario is. And I've also discovered that doesn't just have to mean sports. Like lately, there are a couple projects that I've done that weren't sports. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting that this still feels the same. It's like exciting. It's you're being authentic and you're learning someone's story. But I also think that there's sort of this measuring stick that goes off for me. If I'm in a conversation with someone that's an interview, you know, it's sort of like a balance thing. And by the way, when I was at ESPN, we worked with this interview guru, John Sawatsky, who I adore because he puts you through this like 2-day seminar and his method is just really smart and it works. And I think about him in that all the time because really the goal is you're getting someone to tell their story and there's a very fine art to when the right time to drill down in someone's story is, like being authentic. I don't mean like in a way that you're trying to get at something that they don't want to talk about. I just mean getting them to explore and open up. And I really like that. And I think the reason I love that is because of why we're doing this podcast. It really is. It's like, I'm genuinely interested in those things. So I think, you know, that's this like natural. I don't know. When I was on a panel earlier this week, my job was to interview Nicole Lynn, who is this powerhouse sports agent. She reps Jalen Hurts, got him like the biggest contract under the sun, the quarterback of the Eagles. And her story was fascinating. And I found myself sitting there on this chair with her live in front of hundreds of attorneys and people that are at this conference. And she's sharing her story. And I was like, I don't have to do much because her story is so good. But the one thing that I found that I could add value with was like when she would start telling a story, I would be like, hold on, because I know your book and don't leave this part out. Like back up and tell them this. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Like there's something that I really love about that is like helping to bring someone's story or someone's experience to the masses. Like, so whatever that looks like, it can look like you're on the sidelines and you're reporting a story about someone. It can look like you're hosting and you're setting up a big game that someone's about to play in. Or it can be a podcast or a live podcast, that was such a long answer. This is my problem. I've become long-winded and
No, I was thinking about you do that with guests sometimes on the podcast. And I love it when you're like,
oh,
hold on,
thank
wait.
you.
And then you ask the follow-up question, because I think a lot of times for audience members, that is what we're wanting to know. And so then having an interviewer who is able to say, wait, hold on, and then ask those questions is just really powerful because like you said, I think it gets people to the deeper place that sometimes is hard for them in their own story of what happened. It's harder to get there. And so that sometimes like guides people to that part that people really want to know.
Well, the art of interviewing, that man, John, would tell us that, the real beauty is when you can conduct an interview that has that arc. And he's more talking about if you've got like 15, 20 minutes. So we would always be like, but on SportsCenter, we get 4 minutes to do an interview. Like you've got to pick up like a small chunk of their story if you want to use that tactic. But he would always say, it's like the less we say, the better. So even throwing in there like, well, what happened next? Then what? That's like oftentimes that yields the gold. Like this is nerdy, but I'm telling you, I am so into the art of the interview. Like just in case anyone cares, the thing is like when someone starts by sort of raising what their expectation of whatever they're talking about was, that's when you're getting them to share their authentic story. Like, what did you expect when you started playing baseball as a young person, right? Like that sounds so ridiculous, but there's a real power in that. And you're getting someone to just really take you through their experience. And I think that's so cool. And so then it's just like, there's this little kernel of a thing that you hear. And then you're like, wait a minute, tell me more about that. And then I don't know, it really blew my mind when we did that. And not to say it works every time.
Well, and that's come up in some of the interviews that you've done of just like being able to ask people like, what was that like for you?
Yeah.
And how asking that question can really unlock a lot of powerful responses.
John also would talk about I love the challenge of interviewing two people at the same time. It's really challenging. And there are times like I've definitely done it where I've been like, oh man, I should have done it so differently. But John, I remember when I was getting ready to do one interview on SportsCenter, it was two baseball players who were playing in the All-Star game. And he's like, good luck with this. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, they're going to want you to ask all these questions to check the boxes that you would ask one of those guys on SportsCenter. But he's like, you can't do that. You have to ask player A about player B. And you have to ask player B about player A. And it made me think about the whole thing so differently and then when I did an interview with Eddie Vedder and Anthony Rizzo, who at the time was with the Cubs, that's exactly what I was like, okay, so we're talking baseball, we're talking. Really, that became so challenging because you're not really talking a lot about Pearl Jam. Do you know what I mean? But I'm like, I want to, right? So anyway, I don't know. There are a million ways to skin a cat. I do think that that's really interesting. And I think at the end of the day, it's just so helpful when people really share the shit. That's really what it is. It's like none of us are perfect. Some of us have had a lot more success than others. Some haven't. And some that haven't are living much happier lives and vice versa. Like so let's talk about it,
Yes, 100%. And I think that's where adding more people to the interview can be really powerful because it does make someone more dimensional. Like the thing, like you said, like the Pearl Jam, like normally that might be the thing that Eddie Vedder's often talking about, but how interesting to see this other part of him and have him talk about something different. And I think that is where when you bring in more people, you get this like a more three-dimensional view of somebody who might have talked many times about their own thing, but we don't always get to see them talk about all the other parts of them as a person.
Yes, right. Completely. You nailed it.
I wanted to add, there are so many questions that people have here. Another question is, what is something that no one tells you about being a woman in a male-dominated field?
I should have prepped for this one. I think that something no one tells you about being a woman in a male-dominated field is that the sooner you can connect with other women that are in similar circumstances, the less, I think, daunting any of it seems. And look, like now you turn on a television and there are so many women there with the men, except on certain pregame shows. That still drives me crazy. Can I say that? I just said that. But anyway, I think
Yeah, you can.
that seriously, where's the woman? Like, how can there be like 6 dudes? And
Well,
I
even
love
with
those
this
shows.
question,
And I'm like,
it's been shifting. The dynamics are definitely shifting, but I still think it's a valid question. Of
well, yeah,
there's
because, but not just because there should be a token woman and girls who are watching who are like into this industry or getting into it, but because you have a lot to say, because you know your stuff, and because you really also have a unique sensibility about maybe what someone is going through, because that's a thing no one tells you about being a woman in a male dominated field is that becomes part of your superpower, right? You know what I mean? Because you have this innate sort of sensibility to observe, to connect dots in a way that I think men are great at so many things, but maybe that's not one of their strong suits. And I really believe it's ours. I just said that too. So I think that's it. It's leaning into it. And it truly is leaning into and making connections with other women that are in the field. And they don't have to be doing the same thing that you're doing. They don't have to be, if you're a reporter, they don't have to be a reporter. It could be an executive. It could be a producer. It could be an associate producer, whatever. A writer, I just think connecting with those people is what helps you both learn from each other's experiences, have a sounding board when you need one. And also, finding a way to, and this is something I just pulled from Nicole Lynn's book. She's talking about mentorship and sponsorship and how mentorship is different. Mentorship is finding someone who can help you along the way and guide you. And it could be a peer, an older peer, what have you. A sponsor is someone who gets in the rooms of where the decisions are being made and can advocate for you when you're not there. And she made a point about make sure that a sponsor and probably also a mentor that you have is someone who is not just more really pro company sponsor. And you don't want them to obviously be down on the company that they're working for or working with, but you want to just be able to have the confidence that someone is going to really look out for your best interest. So even if that's just a conversation every now and then, like of, hey, here are some things I'm experiencing as a woman, like, can you help me navigate this? I think that's a really concrete way, is finding other women that you can talk to. And I know I've been in that situation. I have had probably a couple situations that were like high anxiety, you're loving the thrill of the job, like when whether it was sideline reporting or traveling on the go, doing hosting, where it's like there's something that is stressful, is sort of really heavy on my mind. And there was one experience where I remember being in a stadium and a friend of mine, a girlfriend, was there, and I was able to ask her this one question about something that was really stressing me out. And she was like, I have been there. And for whatever reason, I'm like, why didn't I talk to her sooner? But I know from my experience that sometimes I have been intimidated to ask women, because here's something else no one tells you is sometimes you have to get out of your own way in terms of the competition. And I'm hoping that in the entertainment sports industry that things are shifting still in a way where it's like the competition between women kind of gets erased. But I've learned a lot about that piece of it. It's like there are times when sometimes it can feel like women are even pitted against each other because there's only limited spots and you're both great at what you do. And I just think the faster that you can eliminate the competition and understand that there is really a piece of the pie for everybody and everyone's journey is so different that you will ultimately end up being where you were supposed to be. The faster you can sort of just understand that and really kind of be okay with that. And therefore look at relationships with women in really in the most helpful of manners, I think the much more better off you'll be. Yeah. I don't know if you feel like that in your line of work. and what you've done.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that resonates. And I think what you talked about in the beginning about our team with TNOTY is that what I love so much is that we lift each other up. Like we really champion each other, and not just with this show, but just as people. And I think I have really loved that. But I agree with you that that is not always like, I am happiest and feel best in my professional space and just as my space as a human when I'm doing that with other people. But it isn't always, we're not always trained to do that. So I think it is trusting that there is enough opportunity for everyone, that we all have our own unique and special abilities that are going to lead toward great opportunities, and that those opportunities are not going to be shut off by someone else. I mean, I think it is like, you want to hold your ground to be, I mean, you have to, you know, in jobs where there's a competitive element of it, you do have to pave your way to a certain extent. That is necessary. But how can you pave your way without, you know, hurting other people or just feeling that you have to be disconnected from them? I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really love that idea of just that in our industries, the better we all do, the more space we make for ourselves, not just like one person, but all of us. And I think that's definitely the attitude I have with like podcasting and being in podcast production, is just that, you know, the more that I do a great job, I help myself and I help other people. And I just have to trust that that attitude is like, you know, it definitely makes me feel best. And so when I can just stay in that space, that it really works well. But that leads me to another work-life thing that I know comes up for both of us a lot, which is that we are both moms. And so someone also asked about, I hesitate to even say this phrase, but the like work-life family balance, which I know I question whether, I don't even like the word balance, but how do you navigate? Let's put it this way. On your day-to-day, how do you navigate or not the professional things that you do and then your family?
I am horrible at it. And
I would just want to say, I know you, so I know you're not, but I feel that. And I feel that for myself, that would be something I would feel too. It feels horrible sometimes.
I just genuinely love, as I'm sure so many people that are with us here are the same. I like love being around my kids, and I love being like, I had a very hard time the beginning of this school year because I was like, I just want to be in and like see what they're doing. Like my daughter, okay, so we for the first time have split, you know, my son's in middle school, my daughter's in elementary school still. And a lot of the time was spent getting systems in place and prioritizing my son and making sure that it was good. And I felt like at some point, a couple weeks in, I was like, oh my God, I feel off. Like I don't have this connection right now with like it used to be this like happy, sunny little elementary school. Let's pop in and do library duty and all that stuff. So I'm just setting that bar so people understand. Like I grew up with, my mom worked. My mom was in education. She was a teacher and then went on to be a principal. And my dad is a journalist. So like I saw them working. I saw my mom working, but my mom had this like innate ability to like make it kind of feel like she wasn't. And she always was doing these things that I just remember, like these scavenger hunts, taking us on these like, you know, weekend day trips into the city because Washington is right there from Virginia. So we would just hop the metro and go. And so like, that's kind of what I saw modeled. And that is what I don't want to say like set the bar, but I love doing that kind of stuff with my kids. And sometimes I also think like you have to just give yourself grace, and like it becomes that you're just sticking all that in and you're trying to do all the things. You can't be everything to everyone for sure. I struggle with that. And I have a couple of friends that you could ask that would be like, oh, but when work comes into the picture, I really am still trying to figure out my best structure and use of time being in a freelance world. Because, you know, when I was at ESPN or when I'm doing the Olympics and I have my schedule and I know for 3 weeks I am going in at 7 p.m., I'm coming home at 2 a.m., whatever it is. I know that I've got my structure and it it then becomes a lot easier for me to get all the other stuff done around it. And I don't really know why that is. I bet a lot of people are like that. I think, when I would be sideline reporting and then when I would end up having downtime for like an hour or two and you're in a hotel room, I could crank out the stuff I needed to get done for my kids. I was like so on top with the doctor's appointments because you have to be. I am a personality that if I don't have to be, it might not happen. So this is also just like, I'm just sharing too much. And like, I'm embarrassed right now for my mom because she'd be like, oh my God, this is so you, but it's so true. So I'm like, I need to create a structure for myself. I have been very upset with myself recently. And I mean like for 2 days now, because I'm like, there are 3 things in my life that are really important to like my Lindsay happiness that I was doing the past year. And they are 3 things that I have cut out completely for the first few weeks of happening. And I'm just basically a no-show. So I have been a no-show to this tennis clinic that I signed up for. And I think it's probably too long for me anyway, because it's hard for me to have like 2 hours together of something else when I have other projects too. Because Ashley, I'm sure you can relate to this, although you're much more organized than I am. Like when I have multiple things, it is hard to have podcasts. Here's the broadcasting side. Here's the home stuff. And I also might be doing a certain project elsewhere, right? So it's like, oh my God, I find that it's difficult. And I realized, oh my gosh, I have tennis is the thing. And then I've told you before, I love doing this improv thing. And it's just because I love to stretch that muscle because it feels like hard work to me. And I think there's a lot of value in walking away from something and being like, that was really hard, but like, I do feel like maybe I learned something. And so if I were picking one thing, that would be the thing to like hone in on, but I have missed several classes in a row because of various things. So I say that because also sometimes you're making the choice that like, no, it's more important to be present for this child at this event. Therefore, I can't be there. Or no, this evening is more important because we've got this middle school homework that is a little trickier now. And it's better for me to not be at the class. But I think I could do a better job of speaking up and also leaning on, my partner in crime here, Melvin, who's really great at all that stuff too. So I probably need to do like a lot of self-intervention. Does that make sense? Like it became very crystal clear to me though, literally when I was thinking about this yesterday, because I'm like, there is a problem and this is my problem because my other friends a lot of them will make time and not sacrifice that time. And this is probably why I ended up crying in my car in the garage today. So there's that,
Yes, I feel like that all makes a lot of sense. And I think what I am hearing as a mom who has a schedule that is both flexible and also challenging,
yes.
that like what I'm hearing you say is just that I think often we feel, and I think this is true for parents and many other people, that somebody's being let down. Like I can't
Yes.
do all the things, but I want to do all the things. And it's hard to choose which thing. And sometimes I just have to remind myself, like, there's not a right choice.
Yep.
I can't duplicate myself. I can't be at all of it at once. And so, how can I make space for that? And I have been having the same struggles with schedule. In fact, I am embarrassed to say, but things no one tells you, I have spent a lot of time yesterday trying to talk with a ChatGPT bot about like my schedule is like a disaster. Like how
about your schedule?
Yes. Like
seriously?
Yes, because it was this moment for me also where I was like, what has changed is that my schedule feels unhinged. And
okay.
Like, how can I like rein that in a little bit? Or just have more space for myself if I can't rein it in. I think is also that we have different seasons in our life. And so sometimes it's just trying to make space for the fact that it is chaotic or,
Like sometimes we need to speak up and let other people know like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Not out of the norm for anybody, but like, can I get your help? Maybe that's actually what this kind of comes down to is like, can we work on this together? Here's some things I'm feeling. What can we do? And really it's about being transparent. And also like, I think I should just say, because this could be maybe I'm just going to get something off my chest here. And Ashley knows because I told her at the beginning of this conversation, but I found myself being in sort of this spiraling tizzy of things. And because I haven't done those things to prep myself with like, how could I have organized this? I was upset, I was frustrated, and I got into an argument with my parents, and that never happens. And they are like, besides my immediate family, they're the most important things to me. And so now I need to go back and apologize. And I'm also wondering if there are tips for doing that. Like, what is the best honest thing, right? And not that we turn this into the therapy session, but maybe there's a lesson in that for someone. Like just not letting it get to the point of chaos where you're like flying off the wall because of little things that you could normally control if you were more in control of your own time and your own ways that you need to take time to make you happy a little bit,
Yes, I think that is exactly in an effort to do all the things for all the people. Sometimes there is not enough care. And I don't even want to say self-care because I think that has become a whole
I hate that
thing.
word.
Yeah.
I know.
It's like, but it is care of ourselves as people,
Yeah.
like making space for what has to be done in order to keep yourself, regulated, like to keep your body and your mind like functioning, so that you don't fly off the handle, which I certainly, you had your car incident. Mine was in the closet, last weekend. It's fine.
Anywhere you need to go. Anywhere you need to go.
And it was not a time everyone was away from the house, unfortunately, but
Did they see you or were you?
Eventually my husband finally comes in and he's like, babe, I'm like, I just need a minute.
Oh.
I'm gonna
Right.
pull us in here. I'm gonna ask a couple of quick fire questions, and then I wanted to ask one more about, we were talking about like balancing responsibilities. People are interested also in your schedule. So if you want to just comment for a minute about how you and Melvin with your schedules, like how any tips or not about ways that you all handle that as a family.
So I think Melvin is really great on communicating his schedule a week prior, so we've gotten into that rhythm where I know, or more than a week, I know stuff that he has coming up, which is great. And I try to reciprocate that too, as much as possible with what we have going on. Although I've realized that's really something that I can do more proactively, is like get it set so he sees it in front of his face. Because what people don't realize, the thing no one tells you, he's talked about this, is like the amount of stuff that he deals with when he gets into work. It's impossible for anyone to keep up with it. It's just like right in front of your face so much. And he does a really great job of like being present and being prepped. And it's really tricky. So my point is that I think it's like making sure that he just has seen it or is aware and can look at it. Cause oftentimes it's like something's come in and it goes out. So we do that in the prep. And then we try to prioritize dinner time together as much as we can with our whole family. And we're, it just like anyone that tries to do that, of course, there are nights where we just can't. And one kid is flying off to some activity and vice versa, but we really try. And even though sometimes it feels like you're just sitting there and you're not talking specifically about anything, or it's not like we're sitting there asking like, okay, what's your high and your low? Because we found that my daughter likes that. My son's like, meh. But that, and then I think our nighttime routine is a work in progress still, and that's okay. But that's kind of how we do it. And we have certain tent poles that are things that we have really started to love along the way, of like what we do for our just family time, to get away is a little foursome, but then also seeing family. Because one other thing that I think is hard is our families both live away. So it, that can be tricky because you obviously really want to see family. So yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Thanks.
Rapid fire questions here. What made you start telling the joke of the day?
Thanks for asking. My kids during COVID, and we were homeschooling, and I would really try like in the morning to get them into this school routine. And we were actually like given really good direction on like, hey, here's what we want you to be doing with the kids, et cetera. And, I feel like I started to sneak in a joke of the day so that they would pay attention to me. That's kind of what it was. And I was like, here, we'll give you a little, here's what we're going to do. Here's the first thing. And then, hey, here's your joke of the day. And they kind of knew to look forward to it. So I started that. And then I randomly posted like one, and people responded and were like, and so I tried it again. And then it sort of became this like collective thing that I was like, oh, this is interesting. This community is into it. Maybe it was just a way for people to all sort of connect, which I thought was really cool,
I love that.
Thanks.
Favorite NBA team?
Ooh, That's a good question. I started really covering sports in Miami, as I said. So I've always been a huge Heat fan, although I'm from DC, Virginia. So the Wizards are, they're like family. But we've sort of transitioned a little bit to kind of like the Knicks. Like they're really fun to watch, and big fans of Jalen Brunson and the way he carries himself in that team. I'm also a massive Patrick Ewing fan. So can I say three? I just did. But so that's kind of where we are. But we love watching the NBA together, and especially both my kids play basketball, so that's been really fun.
I love that. Okay, one more rapid fire, and then I want to ask you three things no one knows about you. One more rapid fire. Lots of people have questions about everything related to makeup. Do you have just one tip, person, anything that like you like that you could share that maybe inspires you, or like a trick you've learned that you like?
Yes. I I love to use face rollers and under eye stuff. And this is from a makeup artist. Well, a makeup artist named Deb, who works at the Today Show, who I love, who if I've ever gone in to co-host that show or been on the third hour with Melvin, like she just has all these tricks of the trade. And I've worked with a ton of makeup artists, and I've loved like at ESPN. They were like so good. I love it when people like touch your face and it's cold and they have stuff. So I like to go and leave a face roller in your refrigerator. And my problem is I've left like two in hotels the past like 3 weeks because I do that. I'll like stick them in the fridge. But I find, and also my grandma's probably my biggest inspiration with this. My grandma, who's no longer with us, but she would always talk about like rolling your face back up, and her skin looked so good, like for so long. She was in her 90s. And I really value that. I think it's like, if you can put some cold on your face, you really can help control that. I don't know. I know that sounds ridiculous. I should do a how-to with that and show people.
I would love it.
Okay.
I'm like,
okay.
I have this roller that I have never done anything
Yeah.
with. And I feel
You
like
have
it's one
to
of those
use it.
things where somebody said like, oh, you should get this. And I got it, and I have never used it, Lindsay. So I will be putting mine in the fridge. I'll try it out. Sounds fun. Okay. To wrap up, what are three things no one knows about you?
Oh my God. Okay, three things no one knows about me. This is so tricky. I am a morning person. I love mornings. Like I love a sunrise and an opportunity to just be up before anyone is up. I don't always succeed at it, but like in terms of time of day, that's my favorite time of day. Secondly, I could eat spaghetti and meatballs. I teach a religious ed class, and I just told them this, and they were like, what? I was like, I could eat spaghetti and meatballs literally every day for the rest of my life, and I would not get bored. I love spaghetti and meatballs. And I specifically love the meatballs that are my mom's recipe. I do not like them if they have bread crumbs in them. Don't like it. Don't need it. Don't want it. Like that's just me. I specifically also like turkey meatballs. So I just like, that is baseline. That's it. And also, let's see, a third thing no one knows about me is I was cut, did not make my high school soccer team. And I'm saying that because I love the World Cup. I love women's soccer. And I also think there's value in saying that because I have used that before with some kids that I know. I think when you're on this journey, whether you're an athlete or you are parents of kids who are trying out, and I have more, by the way, that I would love for you to ask me that question again, but I really wanted to make it. And when I look back on that experience, I was like, I really wanted to make it, but I didn't want it badly enough to really prep myself in the way that I really should have. So I'm saying that to say, I realize what it feels like if you're resting on your laurels. And that was a scenario where I felt like I was really good at like the rec soccer or whatever, did this, did that. And then I went in for it and I was like, what? So sometimes it's fun to share not so exciting things too,
I love that. I think, yes, it's good for people to know times we did not make it.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be doing this again with Lindsay. So if you're thinking of questions, then please go ahead and send them. You can put them in comments or you can DM us, but we will hold on to them for our next round of Q&A.
Love it. Thanks. You're so good at this. This was fun.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, that just felt like some free therapy for me. So I hope I didn't share too much, but actually, I find it's always helpful to go back and like when people ask you questions and you're answering, isn't that funny how that self-reflection can really sort of shed a different light on things for you and how it can be really helpful. I think everyone should do that from time to time. Anyway, thank you, Ashley. And like I said, I wanted to also share that a couple other women that are part of this team, which we didn't set out being like, this has got to be an all-female team, but it's been really cool. Sarah Walsh is our brand manager who supports TNOTY through her business, Next Era Influence. Funny story, I have a really great friend who's a sportscaster named Sarah Walsh, so I have to decipher between the two of them in my phone. Also, Samantha Archuleta, we call her Sam. Sam is our editing wizard. She is phenomenal. She's also an audiobook narrator because no one on our team can do just one thing, but she's got this amazing voice. She also has her own podcast, which is called Something More Human. So check that out. I wasn't going to leave you hanging. You might have thought I was, but here we go. My joke of the day. Why did the headphones blush? Why did the headphones blush? Because the mic was hot. I actually love that one. All right. I hope you like it. Thanks again. Just another note to please subscribe so you can get access to the episodes that we have coming up. Let us know what you think, what you want to hear more of. And as always, we appreciate you being here in this space. See you next week. Thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you back here next week. Please don't forget, follow and subscribe to Things No One Tells You. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a 5-star review because that's really what helps people get more listeners. We would love to grow this community. We are so grateful that you're a part of it. See you next time.